I never thought I'd find myself questioning everything about my marriage. It all started on a Tuesday evening when I noticed my wife's phone buzzing endlessly on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping, at least, that's what I told myself, but curiosity got the better of me. One message caught my eye: "Can't wait to see you tonight. Don't tell him." My heart stopped. I stared at it, trying to convince myself it was a joke, a wrong number, anything but reality. I poured myself a glass of wine, hoping the warmth would calm the panic rising inside me. My mind raced. Could she really be cheating? Or was I just being paranoid? I thought about all those nights she worked late and the weekend trips she never explained properly. Suddenly, every little detail from the past year made sense, and none of it made me feel good. I decided to confront her, but my hands were shaking too much to form words. The fear of what I might hear was paralyzing. I kept telling myself, maybe I'm reading too much into this. Maybe she's just joking with a friend. But deep down, I knew I couldn't ignore the feeling gnawing at me anymore. I finally mustered the courage to ask her casually, "Hey, who's texting you so much tonight?" She looked up, smiled, and said, "Oh, just a friend from work. You know how it is." But something in her eyes didn't match her words. Subscribe and tell me in the comments what you would do if you were in my shoes. I knew that if I wanted to get to the bottom of this, I'd have to dig deeper, but little did I know, what I'd uncover would change everything I thought I knew about my marriage. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about that message. I tried to act normal, but every glance at her felt loaded with suspicion. Work was a blur. I kept imagining her smiling at someone else, laughing in ways I thought were only meant for me. When I got home, I noticed something strange. A small, almost invisible camera tucked behind a bookshelf in the living room. My stomach dropped. Why would there be a camera here? Did she know I would find it? Or was it meant for someone else? I felt a mix of anger, fear, and betrayal all at once. I waited until she went out for groceries, then carefully inspected the footage. My hands were trembling as I connected it to my laptop. What I saw made my blood run cold. There she was, laughing with a man I had never met before. Close, too close. They kissed. My living room, our home, felt like a stage for someone else's secrets. I couldn't believe it. The woman I had trusted with everything, the mother of my future children, had a life I knew nothing about. Questions swirled in my head. How long had this been going on? Who else knew? Was our entire relationship a lie? I deleted the footage from my laptop after watching it, but not before taking a screenshot for evidence. I needed proof, something undeniable. I had no idea that my next step would lead to an even bigger shock. Was I overreacting, or had I stumbled onto the first real clue of a double life? And who was this man, really? The next day at work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying the footage, the message, every lie I thought I knew. Then my phone rang, her number flashing on the screen. My heart sank. I answered cautiously, "Hey." On the other end, a man's voice said, "She's not available right now. You should come over later." I froze. That wasn't supposed to happen. I had heard her laugh, seen her smile, and trusted her words, but this call shattered every ounce of trust left. I hung up and stared at the phone, realizing I now had undeniable evidence of her betrayal. It wasn't just flirtation or harmless texting, it was real, and it was happening under my nose. I debated calling her out immediately, but I knew I had to stay calm. Losing my temper wouldn't give me the answers I needed. By the evening, I decided to confront her, but in a way that would reveal everything without giving her a chance to lie. I casually mentioned a friend calling about work, watching her reaction closely. She laughed nervously, just slightly too loud, and avoided eye contact. The guilt was there, plain as day. I started asking small, seemingly innocent questions, testing her story. Each answer felt rehearsed, too perfect. That's when I noticed her phone vibrate in her bag, another message. My hands shook as I read it. "Don't worry, he suspects nothing." At that moment, a chilling thought hit me. This wasn't just a fling. She had planned this double life carefully, and I had walked right into it. Who else was involved? And how deep did this betrayal go? A few days later, she told me she had to go on a weekend trip with work friends. Something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. I nodded, pretending to be supportive, but inside I was furious and suspicious. I decided to follow my instincts. Saturday morning, I pretended to run errands, but really, I was tracking her car. My heart pounded with every turn. She drove farther than she claimed, taking routes I didn't recognize. Eventually, She stopped at a small cabin in the woods, a place she never mentioned before. I waited in the shadows, watching through the trees. And then I saw him, the man from the video and the call, waiting outside. She ran into his arms without a second thought, laughing, touching, smiling in a way I had never seen her with me. My chest tightened, and a wave of disbelief hit me. I wanted to confront them, scream, demand answers, but I knew it would ruin everything, and I needed more evidence. I took out my phone, capturing the moment from a safe distance. Each photo felt like a punch to the gut. How could someone live such a double life without leaving a single clue? By the time I drove home, I was exhausted, angry, and heartbroken. Questions tormented me. Was this just a temporary fling, or had it been going on for months? Could I ever trust her again? Was I supposed to walk away quietly, or confront her with the truth I had gathered? Monday morning arrived, and I felt like a walking ghost at work. My mind kept replaying the images from the weekend. I couldn't stop thinking about confronting her, but I also knew I had to plan carefully. That evening, I tried to act normal, pretending nothing was wrong. She walked in smiling, oblivious, or so she thought. I decided to start small. "You seem happy," I said casually, trying to keep my voice steady. She laughed, "Yeah, just a fun weekend with friends. You should have come along." Her words were light, almost too light, and that made my suspicion grow. Then, out of nowhere, she dropped a bomb. "I need to tell you something. I've been seeing someone." My heart raced. Relief? Confusion? Anger? I couldn't tell. She expected me to react immediately, but I stayed calm, letting her continue. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It started a few months ago, and I couldn't stop it," she admitted, tears in her eyes. The more she spoke, the more I realized how deeply this had gone, how secret and hidden her other life had been. My head spun with questions. Why didn't she leave me if she was unhappy? Why the lies? I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake her, but instead, I asked quietly, "Who is he?" Her gaze dropped to the floor, and she whispered his name, the same man from the messages, the calls, and the cabin. I felt like I was drowning in shock and betrayal. But there was one thought I couldn't shake: if I didn't act now, I might lose control of the situation completely. Was I wrong for wanting to uncover everything she had hidden before making any decision? I couldn't sleep that night. Every memory of our life together felt tainted. I needed answers, proof beyond her confession. Early the next morning, I logged into our shared laptop under the guise of checking emails for work. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but then I noticed a folder labeled private. My heart pounded as I opened it. Inside were dozens of emails between her and the man, the same one from the messages in the cabin. They were planning meetings, trips, even secret gifts for each other. Each email was more damning than the last. I read one carefully. It mentioned a plan for next weekend, something that made my blood run cold. She had been plotting to spend an entire weekend with him, fully knowing I had no idea. I saved screenshots, trying to steady my shaking hands. It wasn't just the emotional betrayal, it was the sheer planning, the deception, the way she had compartmentalized her life so perfectly. I realized this wasn't a moment of weakness, it was a hidden, calculated affair. I debated whether to confront her immediately or gather even more evidence. But one thing was clear: I couldn't trust her anymore. The life I thought we shared had been a carefully constructed illusion. Who else might know about this? And how far would she go to keep it hidden? A few days later, I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I decided to confront her, but I wanted it to be somewhere neutral, somewhere public, where I could stay calm and in control. I invited her to meet me at a quiet cafe near her office. As soon as she sat down, I slid the laptop across the table, opening it to the folder of emails. Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her face. She tried to smile, tried to explain, but the words sounded hollow. "You lied to me," I said steadily. "Every weekend, every late night, every work trip, all of it. How long were you planning this without me noticing?" Her voice trembled. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you." I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. "Hurt me? You shattered everything. And it wasn't just an affair. You've been living a double life." Passers-by glanced at us, but I didn't care. I wanted her to feel the weight of every betrayal, every lie. She cried, apologized, but I could see the reality in her eyes. This was not going to end with simple words. Then she whispered something that stopped me cold. "He's coming to see me tonight. I can't say no." The cafe suddenly felt smaller, suffocating. My mind raced. I could confront him directly, or I could plan my next move carefully. But one thing was clear, this story was far from over, and the next twist would hit even harder. Who do you think is the real villain here, her, him, or the situation that allowed this to happen? I spent the next few days in a daze, unable to eat or sleep properly. I felt trapped in a nightmare where everyone around me seemed oblivious. Then, out of nowhere, a friend from work, someone I trusted, noticed my distress. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. I hesitated, unsure if I could trust anyone with my secret. But something about her concern felt genuine. I decided to confide in her, showing her the screenshots and emails. Her reaction shocked me. She was furious, not just at my wife, but at the audacity of the man she had been seeing. "You can't let this slide," she said. "We need a plan. You deserve to know everything, and maybe it's time to confront him directly." I realized then that I wasn't entirely alone. I had an ally, someone who could help me navigate this mess without letting my emotions completely take over. Together, we pieced together a timeline of her secret life, every weekend trip, every suspicious meeting, every carefully crafted lie. But as we dug deeper, we found something more alarming. The man wasn't just a fling. He had been manipulating her, convincing her to lie and hide things from me, and possibly from others as well. The thought of confronting him directly sent shivers down my spine, but I knew it was inevitable. The question was, when and how? And what would I do if he turned out to be more dangerous than I expected? Was I ready to face the consequences of uncovering the full truth? A few nights later, I decided it was time to act. With my friend's support, I arranged to meet him, disguised as someone interested in a business deal, so he wouldn't suspect anything. My heart was pounding as I approached the small cafe where we agreed to meet. He arrived, confident and charming, completely unaware of who I really was. I forced myself to stay calm, to speak casually, but every word I said felt like a test of control. I subtly probed him, asking questions about my wife and her recent trips. His answers were smooth, rehearsed, too smooth. I could see the tension in his eyes when I mentioned my friend's concern. It was clear he knew more than he let on. I pulled out my phone, pretending to check something, but secretly recording the conversation. I had to catch him in a lie, to get undeniable proof of his manipulation and deceit. Then, in a shocking twist, he admitted something I never expected. He wasn't just seeing her, he had been using her to get to me. He mentioned things only my wife and I knew about: our finances, our habits, even private conversations. My stomach dropped. This was bigger than I imagined. I left the cafe stunned, my mind racing. This wasn't just about betrayal or heartbreak anymore. It was about trust, manipulation, and hidden agendas. And I realized the next step would be the hardest, confronting my wife with the full extent of her deception. Was I strong enough to face the truth head-on, or would it destroy me completely? Just when I thought the betrayals couldn't get worse, she dropped another bomb. A week after confronting him, she sat me down and said, "I'm pregnant." My mind went blank. I didn't know whether to feel joy, shock, or betrayal. The timing made no sense. It wasn't just a surprise, it was a twist that threw everything I thought I knew into chaos. My heart raced, but so did my doubts. Was the child mine? Or was it his? She assured me it was mine, but after everything, how could I believe anything she said? I decided to take a step back, forcing myself to breathe and think clearly. I scheduled a doctor's appointment to confirm the pregnancy and, at the same time, decided to get some evidence about the timing. I couldn't let emotions cloud my judgment, not now. Meanwhile, she tried to be normal, pretending that her life could go back to the way it was. But every smile, every touch felt hollow. I couldn't forget the hidden messages, the emails, the cabin, or his confession. Every memory hit harder now that a child was involved. The situation spiraled into a confusing mess of love, betrayal, and responsibility. I found myself asking, could I forgive her? Could we ever be a family again? Or was this child only a new layer to a web of lies? Was I being fair, or was my anger blinding me to a chance at reconciliation? I thought I had seen it all, but life had another twist in store. A few weeks later, at a friend's party, I noticed her whispering and laughing with someone across the room. My stomach sank. It was him, the same man from the messages, the cabin, and the confession. I felt my hands clench, but I decided to stay calm. I didn't want to make a scene, not yet. But then he walked over, smiling confidently, unaware of the storm about to hit. I approached them slowly, keeping my voice steady. "We need to talk," I said, loud enough for a few nearby guests to hear. The room went silent. Eyes turned, whispers spread. I revealed the screenshots, the emails, and the hidden footage on my phone. Their faces went pale. The guests stared in shock, the whispers turning into murmurs of disbelief. My wife's eyes welled up, and his face hardened. It was humiliating, for them, yes, but for me too. I had to witness the truth in public, facing the reality of their betrayal. Some of our closest friends were there, and I could see their disappointment and sympathy in equal measure. As I left the party, I realized something important: the exposure had power. It was proof, undeniable, and it shifted the balance. But the question remained, how would I rebuild my life after such betrayal, especially with a child on the way? Who do you think handled the situation better, me confronting them publicly, or staying silent? After the public confrontation, I knew I couldn't just sit back and let her continue manipulating our lives. I started planning carefully, determined to reclaim control. My friend helped me strategize, a mix of subtle exposure and setting boundaries that would make her think twice before betraying me again. I gathered all evidence, emails, screenshots, and videos, organizing them meticulously. Every lie, every secret was documented. I wanted her to understand the full weight of her actions. But this wasn't just about revenge, it was about taking back my dignity, proving that deceit doesn't go unpunished. Then came the execution. I began sharing hints of her betrayal with mutual friends, carefully, without full disclosure. Rumors spread subtly. She noticed the change in how people looked at her, felt the shift in her social circle. Panic started creeping into her behavior, and I could see the fear in her eyes. It wasn't enough for her to be caught once, I wanted her to feel the consequences of every lie she had built. Each step of the plan was a balance between justice and restraint, showing her the ripple effects of her double life. But even as I acted, I couldn't ignore the complexity of emotions swirling inside me: anger, hurt, betrayal, but also a strange sense of empowerment. I realized that taking control of the situation didn't make me cruel, it made me strong. Was I crossing a line, or finally standing up for myself in a way I never thought possible? It all came to a head when I realized that her betrayal wasn't just affecting me, it was starting to ripple through our families. I decided it was time for the ultimate confrontation, one that included both our parents and closest relatives. We gathered at my parents' house under the guise of a casual dinner. Everyone was unsuspecting, laughing, and chatting, completely unaware of the storm about to break. I kept my composure, letting them settle before I started. I calmly revealed the emails, screenshots, and the weekend cabin story. The room fell silent. My parents were shocked, her parents horrified. She tried to explain, to defend herself, but every word sounded rehearsed. I could see the realization dawning on her that the web of lies she had spun was now fully exposed. Her mother gasped, her father looked away, and I could sense my family's support in the glances they exchanged with me. It was a mix of justice and heartbreak, justice for me, heartbreak for what this family had once believed was a stable marriage. By the end of the night, it was clear, there was no going back. The betrayal had consequences that reached beyond the two of us. The man she was seeing didn't even show up, but his presence was felt in every whisper and stunned look. Who was truly to blame here, the one who betrayed, or the one who allowed secrets to fester? The days after the family confrontation were surreal. Everyone was walking on eggshells, and I felt like I was living in a fog. Even though the truth was out, the emotional toll was crushing. I found myself questioning everything: my trust, my judgment, and even my ability to love again. My wife tried to apologize repeatedly, but each word felt empty. The betrayal had cut too deep. I spent long nights alone, replaying every memory, every laugh, and every intimate moment, realizing some of them had been built on lies. Anger and sadness collided inside me, leaving me exhausted. At the same time, I felt a strange clarity. I knew who I was, what I deserved, and that I couldn't allow this deception to define me. I focused on rebuilding my life, setting boundaries, and protecting myself emotionally. Every decision I made became deliberate, choosing honesty, transparency, and self-respect over resentment. Despite the heartbreak, I also discovered strength I didn't know I had. The betrayal had hurt me, but it hadn't broken me completely. I realized that moving forward didn't mean forgetting, it meant taking control of my life, no matter how painful the lessons had been. The question lingered in my mind: could there ever be forgiveness, or was this the beginning of a permanent divide? Weeks passed, and life slowly settled into a fragile routine. But just when I thought I had reached closure, I received a mysterious envelope in the mail. Inside were photos, her and him, this time in places I never expected, and not just casual meetings. There were legal documents, hidden investments, and plans that suggested she had been preparing a future completely separate from mine. It hit me like a ton of bricks. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was calculated, long-term, and far-reaching. Every instinct I had to trust, every warning my gut had given me, was right. I realized that some people can live entire double lives, and we only see what they allow. I felt a mix of relief, sorrow, and empowerment. I had uncovered the truth, protected myself, and now knew exactly who she was. Life wouldn't be the same, but I had regained control. Her lies couldn't dictate my future anymore. As I closed the envelope, I took a deep breath and promised myself one thing: never ignore the signs, trust my instincts, and value my own worth above all. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and stay tuned for the next drama.